Yuna stood by the window of her small apartment in Seoul. The morning sun was warm on her silver skin. She watched the humans below walking to work, riding bicycles, and drinking coffee from paper cups. 3 years ago, she had left her home planet to live among them. 3 years ago, she had married a human man named Taiho, and every single day since then, she had felt both happy and sad at the same time. Happy because Taiho loved her more than anyone had ever loved her before. Sad because she could never give him what he deserved. A family, children, a future. Yuna was a Velen. Her people had traveled the stars for thousands of years. They lived for centuries. They had technology that humans could only dream about. But there was one thing the Velens could not fix. When a Velen woman was born infertile, she stayed infertile forever. The healers on her home planet had told Yuna this truth when she was just a child. Her womb was broken. Her eggs were dead. No medicine, no magic, no amount of prayer would ever change this fact. Her mother, Nari, had cried for many days when she learned the news. Among the Velens, children were everything. A woman without children was like a tree without fruit. She was loved, yes, but also pitied. Nari had spent years trying to find a cure for her daughter. She visited every healer on every planet. She spent fortunes on treatments that promised miracles. Nothing worked. Eventually, even Nari accepted the truth. Her daughter would never be a mother. When Yuna announced that she was going to marry a human, Nari had not been angry. She had been confused. Humans live such short lives. They were fragile. They got sick easily. They died from things that Velens considered minor problems. Why would her daughter want to spend her long life with someone who would grow old and die in what felt like the blink of an eye? But Yuna had explained it simply. She loved Taiho. He was kind. He was funny. He made her feel normal. He did not look at her with pity like other Velens did. When she told him she could not have children, he had simply held her hand and said, "Then we will find other ways to be happy." Those words had meant everything to Yuna. Now, 3 years later, she was still happy with Taiho. He worked as a doctor at a big hospital in Seoul. He left early every morning and came home late every night. But he always made time for her. He cooked dinner for her. He watched movies with her. He held her when she felt homesick for her planet. He never complained. He never asked for anything she could not give. Yuna turned away from the window and walked to the kitchen. She was going to make breakfast for herself. Taiho had already left for work. She opened the refrigerator and took out some eggs and vegetables. She placed a pan on the stove and turned on the fire. Then, without warning, the room began to spin. Yuna grabbed the edge of the counter. Her silver skin became pale. Her legs felt weak. A strange feeling rose in her stomach, like a wave pushing up from deep inside her body. She tried to take a deep breath, but her chest felt tight. The pan fell from her hand and crashed on the floor. The eggs broke and spread across the tiles. Yuna fell to her knees. Her vision became blurry. She tried to call out for help, but no sound came from her mouth. The last thing she saw before everything went dark was the sunlight coming through the kitchen window. When she opened her eyes again, she was lying in a hospital bed. The walls were white. The lights were bright. Machines beeped softly beside her. She blinked several times and tried to remember what had happened. "Yuna? Can you hear me?" She turned her head and saw Taiho sitting beside her bed. His face was pale. His eyes were red, like he had been crying. He was holding her hand tightly. "Taiho," she whispered. Her throat was dry. "What happened?" "You fainted," he said. His voice was shaking. "I got a call from the building manager. He found you on the kitchen floor. I came as fast as I could." Yuna tried to sit up, but Taiho gently pushed her back down. "Rest," he said. The doctors are still running tests. Tests? Yuna felt confused. Why? I just fainted. Maybe I did not eat enough. Taiho did not answer. He just looked at her with a strange expression on his face. It was not sadness. It was not fear. It was something else. Something Yuna could not understand. A few minutes later, a doctor walked into the room. She was a human woman with short hair and glasses. She was holding a tablet in her hands and looking at the screen with wide eyes. "Mrs. Yuna," the doctor said slowly, "I need to ask you some questions." "Of course," Yuna replied. "Have you been feeling tired lately? More than usual?" "Yes, a little." "Have you felt sick in the mornings?" "Sometimes." "I thought it was because of the food here. Human food is different from what I ate on my planet." The doctor nodded. She looked at Taiho, then back at Yuna. She took a deep breath. "Mrs. Yuna, I do not know how to say this. I have checked the results 3 times. I asked 2 other doctors to check them as well. We all agree." Yuna felt her heart beat faster. "What is it? Am I sick?" The doctor shook her head. "No, you are not sick." She paused. "You are pregnant." The room became silent. Yuna stared at the doctor. She did not move. She did not breathe. She thought she had heard wrong. "That is impossible," Yuna said finally. "I am infertile. I have been infertile since birth. Your machines must be broken." "Our machines are not broken," the doctor said gently. "We used 3 different tests. All of them show the same result. You are approximately 8 weeks pregnant." Yuna looked at Taiho. He was crying now, but he was also smiling. It was the strangest thing she had ever seen. "Taiho," she whispered, "how is this possible?" He squeezed her hand. "I do not know," he said, "but it is real. Our baby is real." Yuna placed her free hand on her stomach. She felt nothing different. But somewhere inside her, something was growing. Something that should not exist. Something that every Velen healer had said was impossible. She thought of her mother, Nari, back on the Velen home world. She thought of all the tears Nari had cried. She thought of all the money Nari had spent trying to fix her broken daughter. And now, after all these years, after all that pain, the impossible had happened. Yuna began to cry. Not because she was sad. Not because she was scared. She cried because for the first time in her very long life, she felt hope. And somewhere across the galaxy, she knew her mother would soon feel the same way. 7 months had passed since Yuna first learned she was pregnant. 7 months of hope, fear, joy, and wonder. 7 months of watching her belly grow bigger and feeling her baby move inside her. And now, finally, the waiting was over. The hospital room was quiet, except for the steady beeping of machines. Yuna lay on the bed, her silver skin damp with sweat. Taiho stood beside her, holding her hand. Nari sat in a chair nearby, her old eyes fixed on her daughter. "You are doing wonderfully," the human doctor said. She was the same doctor who had first told Yuna about her pregnancy. Her name was Dr. Minji, and she had been caring for Yuna ever since that day. "Just a little more. The baby is almost here." Yuna squeezed Taiho's hand so hard that his fingers turned white. She had never felt pain like this before. Velen women were supposed to give birth easily, without much discomfort. But Yuna was carrying a half-human child. The rules did not apply anymore. "I cannot do this," she gasped. "It hurts too much." Taiho leaned close to her ear. "Yes, you can. You are the strongest person I know. You have already done the impossible once. You can do it again." Yuna closed her eyes and pushed with all her strength. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a sound that filled the room and touched every heart inside it. The cry of a newborn baby. Dr. Minji lifted the tiny child, and smiled. It is a girl. A healthy, beautiful girl. She placed the baby on Yuna's chest. Yuna looked down at her daughter and felt the world stop around her. The baby was small, smaller than Velen babies usually were. Her skin was a soft gray color, lighter than Yuna's silver, but darker than Taiho's pale human skin. Her eyes were closed, and her tiny hands were curled into fists. She was the most beautiful thing Yuna had ever seen. "Hello, little one," Yuna whispered. Tears streamed down her face. "I have been waiting for you for so long." Taiho leaned down and kissed his wife's forehead. Then he looked at his daughter. His eyes were full of wonder. He had helped create life in many ways during his career as a doctor. He had delivered babies, performed surgeries, and saved patients from death. But nothing compared to this moment. Nothing compared to seeing his own child for the first time. "What will you name her?" Nari asked. Her voice was thick with emotion. She had stood up from her chair and walked closer to the bed, unable to stay away from her granddaughter. Yuna and Taiho looked at each other. They had discussed names many times during the pregnancy. They had made lists, crossed out options, and argued gently about which name was best. But in the end, there was only one choice that felt right. "Hannah," Yuna said. "We will call her Hannah." Nari's eyes widened. Hannah. In the old Velen language, that means hope. And in Korean, Taiho added, it means one. She is the first of her kind. The first child born from an impossible love. Nari reached out and touched Hannah's tiny hand. The baby's fingers wrapped around her grandmother's silver finger and held on tight. Nari felt something break inside her. Not break in a bad way. Break in the way that walls break when they are no longer needed. All the doubt she had felt, all the skepticism about humans, all the sadness about her daughter's condition. It all crumbled away and left only love behind. "She is perfect," Nari said. "Absolutely perfect." The news of Hannah's birth spread across the galaxy even faster than the news of Yuna's pregnancy had. Messages of congratulations arrived from every planet. Gifts were sent from species that Yuna had never even heard of. News channels across the universe showed pictures of the half-human, half-Velen baby who represented a new era of possibility. But the most important reaction came from the millions of infertile Velen women who had been watching and waiting. In the months since Taiho's speech to the Galactic Council, thousands of them had received the nanobot treatment. Some had already become pregnant. Others were still waiting for the treatment to work. And many more were just beginning their journey toward motherhood. They saw Hannah's birth as proof that the treatment was real. It was not just a theory. It was not just hope. It was a living, breathing child who cried and slept and held her mother's hand. Letters poured in from all over the galaxy. One letter came from a young Velen woman named Sora. She had been infertile since birth. Just like Yuna, she had given up on ever having children. But after hearing Yuna's story, she had traveled to Earth and received the treatment. Now she was 3 months pregnant with her first child. "You gave me something I never thought I would have," Sora wrote. "You gave me a future. Thank you, Yuna. Thank you forever." Another letter came from a Velen man named Dohan. His wife had died many years ago, before they could have children together. He had thought his family line would end with him. But now, with the human treatment, his niece had become pregnant. His family would continue. "My ancestors are smiling," Dohan wrote. "Because of you and your human husband, our blood will flow for another 1,000 years." Hundreds of letters like these arrived every day. Yuna read them all. She cried over some. She laughed over others. And she kept every single one in a special box beside her bed. "How does it feel?" Taiho asked one night. Hannah was sleeping in her crib beside their bed. Nari had gone back to the villain home world to share the good news with the rest of their family. The apartment was quiet and peaceful. How does what feel? Yuna replied, knowing that you changed the galaxy. Yuna thought about the question for a long time. She looked at her sleeping daughter. She thought about all the letters she had received. She thought about all the babies who would be born because of what she and Taiho had done. I did not change the galaxy, she finally said. You did. You and Jisoo and all the human doctors who refused to accept impossible. I just believed in you. Taiho shook his head. We did it together. All of us. Humans and villains working side by side. That is what made the miracle possible. He took her hand and held it gently. Do you know what I learned from this experience? He asked. What? I learned that the universe is not divided into possible and impossible. It is divided into problems we have solved and problems we have not solved yet. Every impossible thing is just a problem waiting for the right person to come along and solve it. Yuna smiled. That sounds like something a human would say. It is something a human would say. It is also something a villain should say. And Araxian. And every other species in the galaxy. Because when we all start thinking that way, there is nothing we cannot achieve. Hannah stirred in her crib. She made a small sound, not quite a cry, more like a sigh. Yuna reached over and stroked her daughter's gray cheek. The baby settled back into sleep. What do you think she will become when she grows up? Yuna asked. Anything she wants, Taiho replied. She is the daughter of two worlds. She has villain wisdom and human determination. She can do anything, be anything, achieve anything. The galaxy is lucky to have her. The galaxy is lucky to have all of us. Working together. Believing in each other. Refusing to give up. Yuna leaned her head on Taiho's shoulder. Outside the window, the stars were shining. Somewhere among those stars, Valen women were becoming mothers for the first time. Somewhere among those stars, families were being created that would never have existed without one human doctor and his stubborn refusal to accept the word impossible. Thank you, Yuna whispered. For what? For everything? For loving me. For never giving up on me. For giving me Hannah. For giving the galaxy hope. Taiho kissed the top of her head. Thank you for believing in me. For trusting me. For showing me that love knows no boundaries, not even the boundaries between species. They sat together in the quiet darkness, watching their daughter sleep. Outside, the universe continued to spin. New challenges waited. New problems needed solutions. New impossibilities stood ready to be conquered. But for now, in this small apartment on a small planet called Earth, one family had found their happy ending. And across the galaxy, millions of other families were just beginning theirs. The impossible had become possible. And hope, like light, was spreading through the darkness of space, one miracle at a time. News travels fast in the galaxy. It moves through communication networks, passes from planet to planet, and spreads through space stations and colony ships. Within 1 week of Nari's arrival on Earth, the story of Yuna's pregnancy had reached the Velen home world. At first, no one believed it. The High Council of Velen healers dismissed the reports as human exaggeration. They said that humans were known for making false claims about their science. They said that no primitive species could solve a problem that Velens had failed to solve for thousands of years. They laughed at the idea of tiny machines fixing broken genes. But then Nari sent a video. In the video, she stood beside her pregnant daughter. Yuna lifted her shirt to show her round belly. A human doctor placed a device on her skin, and the sound of a heartbeat filled the room. 2 heartbeats, actually. Yuna's slow Velen heartbeat, and the faster heartbeat of the baby growing inside her. The video spread across the Velen homeworld like fire. Millions watched it. Millions shared it. And millions of Velen women who had been told they could never have children suddenly felt something they had not felt in years. Hope. Messages began arriving on Earth by the thousands. Velen women from every corner of the galaxy sent requests for information about the human treatment. They wanted to know how it worked. They wanted to know if it could help them. They wanted to know if the miracle was real. Taiho and his colleague Jisoo worked day and night to respond to the messages. They explained the treatment process. They shared their research data. They offered to teach Velen doctors how to create the nanobots themselves. Everything they had learned, they gave away freely. The response from the Velen medical community was mixed. Some Velen healers were grateful. They contacted Taiho directly and asked for training. They admitted that their own science had limitations. They said they were willing to learn from humans, even if it was humbling. But other Velen healers were angry. They saw the human discovery as an insult to their ancient traditions. They said that Velen medicine was superior to human medicine and always would be. They accused Taiho of using dangerous, untested technology on Velen patients. They demanded that the treatment be banned. The debate grew louder and louder. Eventually, it reached the highest levels of galactic government. The Galactic Council was the ruling body that governed all the intelligent species in the known universe. It was made up of representatives from over 200 different planets. The Velens had been members for 10,000 years. Humans had only been members for 50 years. In council meetings, human opinions were often ignored. Humans were seen as newcomers who did not yet understand how the galaxy worked. But now, the council wanted to talk to humans. A formal message arrived at Earth's government headquarters. The Galactic Council requested an audience with the Human Medical Committee responsible for the fertility treatment. They wanted to learn more about the technology. They wanted to assess whether it was safe. And they wanted to discuss sharing the treatment with other species who might benefit from it. Taeho was terrified when he received the invitation. "I am just a doctor," he told Yuna that night. "I am not a politician. I do not know how to speak to galactic leaders. What if I say something wrong? What if I embarrass humanity?" Yuna took his hand and squeezed it gently. Her belly was even bigger now. The baby would come in just 3 more months. "You will not embarrass anyone," she said. "You will tell them the truth. You will explain what you did and why you did it. That is all they need to hear. But what if they do not like the truth? What if they see humans as a threat? What if they ban our technology?" Yuna smiled. "Then we will find another way. Is that not what humans do?" Taiho laughed despite his fear. His wife knew him well. The council meeting was held on a space station orbiting a neutral planet. Taiho traveled there with Jisoo and a small team of human scientists. They were given a tiny room to prepare in, while hundreds of alien representatives gathered in the main chamber. When it was time for the presentation, Taiho walked to the center of the chamber. He felt very small. The room was huge, filled with beings of every shape and size. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no bodies at all and existed only as light. They all stared at the little human doctor standing before them. Taiho cleared his throat and began to speak. "My name is Taiho. I am a doctor from a planet called Earth. 3 years ago, I married a Velen woman named Yuna. She was infertile. Every Velen healer told her that her condition was permanent. But I did not accept that answer." He pressed a button and a holographic image appeared above him. It showed the nanobots enlarged thousands of times so the council could see them. These are nanobots. They are tiny machines that can enter the body and repair damaged cells. My colleague Jisoo and I developed them to fix the genetic error that caused my wife's infertility. The treatment worked. My wife is now pregnant with our first child. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Taiho continued, "I am not here to claim that human science is superior to anyone else's. I am not here to insult the Velen healers who tried to help my wife before I met her. They are excellent doctors who care deeply about their patients. But they approached the problem differently than I did. He paused and looked around the room, meeting the eyes of as many beings as he could. When Velen healers encountered a problem they could not solve, they concluded that the problem was unsolvable. When the first encountered the same problem, I concluded that I simply had not found the solution yet. That is the difference between us. Not technology, not intelligence, just perspective. A Velen representative stood up. He was an old healer with deep lines on his silver face. He looked angry. You are saying that Velen doctors gave up on their patients too easily? He demanded. You are insulting thousands of years of medical tradition. Taiho shook his head. No, I am saying that different species think differently. Velens live for centuries. You have learned to accept certain things as unchangeable because fighting against them seems pointless over such a long life. Humans live for less than 100 years. We do not have time to accept anything. We must fight against every limitation because our lives are too short to waste. The chamber fell silent. The old Velen healer sat back down slowly. He did not look angry anymore. He looked thoughtful. Another representative stood up. She was from a species Taiho did not recognize, with blue skin and 4 arms. You said you are willing to share this technology with other species, she said. What do you want in return? Nothing, Taiho replied. We want nothing in return. Nothing? That is hard to believe. Every species wants something. Humans want to help. That is what we want. When we see suffering, we try to end it. When we see problems, we try to solve them. We do not do this for profit or power. We do it because it is the right thing to do. The chamber buzzed with conversation. Many representatives looked skeptical, but some looked curious. And a few, especially those from species with fertility problems of their own, looked hopeful. The council voted that day to allow the human fertility treatment to be shared across the galaxy. They established a committee to oversee its development and distribution. And for the first time in galactic history, humans were invited to lead a major scientific initiative. When Taiho returned to Earth, he found Nari waiting for him at the landing port. She was standing beside Yuna, whose belly was now so big that she had trouble walking. I watched your speech, Nari said. The whole galaxy watched your speech. Was it okay? Taiho asked nervously. Nari smiled. It was a real smile, warm and genuine. It was more than okay. You showed the galaxy who humans really are. Not primitive newcomers. Not children playing with technology, but a species with courage, generosity, and heart. She bowed to him, the deepest bow of respect that Velens gave to honored elders. Thank you, son, she said. Thank you for changing everything. Taiho felt tears form in his eyes. He bowed back to his mother-in-law, and for a moment, human and Velen stood together in perfect understanding. The impossible had spread beyond one family. It was now spreading across the stars. The dinner table was set with both human and Velen food. Taiho had spent the whole afternoon cooking. He made kimchi, rice, grilled fish, and vegetable soup. For Nari, he prepared special Velen dishes that Yuna had taught him to make. The smells filled the small apartment with warmth. Nari sat at the table, still looking at everything with suspicious eyes. She had been on Earth for 3 days now. She had seen her daughter's growing belly. She had heard the baby's heartbeat through a human machine. She had even spoken with the human doctors at the hospital. But she still did not fully understand how this miracle had happened. Tell me everything, she said to Taiho as he placed food on her plate. From the beginning. I want to know exactly what you did to my daughter. Taiho sat down across from her. Yuna sat between them, eating quietly. She knew this conversation needed to happen. Her mother needed answers. It started 3 years ago, Taiho began. Right after Yuna and I got married. She told me about her condition. She told me that every Velen healer had said there was no cure. She told me to accept it. And you did not accept it, Nari said. It was not a question. No, I could not. I am a doctor. When I see a problem, I try to fix it. That is what doctors do. So I started reading about Velen biology. I read every research paper I could find. I talked to every scientist who had studied your species. I learned as much as I could. Nari leaned back in her chair. Our biology is very complex. Humans have only known about us for 50 years. How could you learn enough to help my daughter? I did not do it alone, Taiho said. I work with a colleague named Jisoo. She's one of the best medical researchers in Korea. When I told her about Yuna's condition, she became interested. She said it was exactly the kind of problem she'd like to solve. What kind of problem? An impossible one. Nari's eyes narrowed. There was that word again. Impossible. Humans seemed to use it differently than Velens did. For Velens, impossible meant the end. For humans, it seemed to mean the beginning. Taiho continued. Jisoo and I studied Yuna's medical records for months. We compared them to records from healthy Velen women. We looked for differences. We looked for patterns. And finally, we found something. What did you find? The problem was not in Yuna's womb. The problem was in her cells. There was a genetic error that stopped her eggs from developing properly. The Velen healers knew about this error, but they believed it could not be fixed. They believed that once a gene was broken, it stayed broken forever. Nari nodded slowly. That is what our science tells us. Genetic damage in Velens is permanent. Our cells do not repair themselves the way other species cells do. That is true, Taiho said. Velen cells cannot repair genetic damage on their own. But what if they had help? Help? What kind of help? Taiho smiled. It was the smile of a teacher explaining something wonderful to a student. Humans have been studying something called nanotechnology for many years. These are tiny machines, smaller than cells, that can enter the body and do things that medicine cannot do. Jisoo and I wondered if we could use nanobots to repair the genetic damage in Yuna's eggs. Nari felt her heart beat faster. You put machines inside my daughter? Very small machines. Smaller than you can see. Smaller than you can feel. They traveled through Yuna's blood and found the damaged cells. Then they repaired them, one by one, piece by piece. That sounds dangerous. It was, Taiho admitted. Very dangerous. That is why it took us 2 years to develop the treatment. We had to make sure the nanobots would not hurt Yuna. We had to test them thousands of times. We failed more times than I can count. But we kept trying. Nari looked at her daughter. You knew about this? You let them experiment on you? Yuna reached across the table and took her mother's hand. I trusted Taiho. He never lied to me. He told me the risks. He told me the treatment might not work. He told me I could say no at any time. But I wanted to try. I wanted to have hope, even if it was a small hope. And the treatment worked, Nari said quietly. Yes, the nanobots repaired the damage in my eggs. It took 6 months for my body to heal completely. Then, 2 months ago, I became pregnant. Nari sat in silence for a long time. The food on her plate grew cold. She was thinking about everything she had just heard. Tiny machines that could fix broken genes. Humans who refused to accept impossible. A daughter who had chosen hope over fear. Why did the Velen healers never try this? Nari asked finally. We have technology far more advanced than yours. We could have made these nanobots centuries ago. Taiho and Jisoo had discussed this question many times. Taiho gave Nari the answer they had found together. I think it is because of how your people see problems. When Velen healers look at a patient, They ask what is broken and whether it can be fixed with no methods. If the answer is no, they stop trying. They accept the limitation. But human doctors ask a different question. We ask, what would it take to fix this problem, even if no one has done it before? We do not accept limitations. We try to break them. Nari shook her head slowly. That sounds exhausting. To always be fighting against what cannot be changed. It is exhausting, Taiho agreed. But sometimes it leads to miracles. He looked at Yuna's belly, round and full of life. Nari followed his gaze. She thought about all the years she had spent crying over her daughter's condition. All the money she had spent on Velen treatments that did nothing. All the hope she had lost died, and now, because of one human man and his stubborn refusal to give up, her daughter was going to have a baby. There is something else I should tell you, Taiho said. His voice became serious. Jishu and I did not develop this treatment just for Yuna. We developed it to help all Velen women who suffer from the same condition. Nari's eyes widened. What do you mean? We have documented everything. The research, the experiments, the treatment process. We want to share this knowledge with Velen doctors so they can help their own patients. You would give away your discovery? For free? Taiho looked confused by the question. Of course. Knowledge should not be kept secret. If our treatment can help people, then it should be available to everyone. That is what medicine is for. Nari felt something change inside her. For 600 years, she had believed that humans were primitive, simple, and not worth her attention. She had seen them as children playing with toys they did not understand. But sitting at this table, eating food cooked by her human son-in-law, she realized how wrong she had been. Humans were not primitive. They were persistent. They were creative. They were generous. And most importantly, they were brave enough to try things that other species would never dare to attempt. Taiho, Nari said. Her voice was softer now, warmer. I owe you an apology. When Yuna told me she was marrying you, I was not happy. I thought she was making a mistake. I thought she was wasting her long life on someone who would die so quickly. Taiho nodded. He had known about Nari's feelings. Yuna had told him. But I was wrong, Nari continued. You have given my daughter something no Velen ever could. You have given her hope. You have given her a future. And you have given me a grandchild. Her voice broke on the last word. Tears rolled down her silver cheeks. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Taiho stood up and walked around the table. He knelt beside Nari and took her hands in his. We are family now, he said simply. Family takes care of each other. That is true for humans, and I believe it is true for Velens as well. Nari nodded through her tears. Yes, it is true for all beings who love. Yuna watched her mother and her husband holding hands, and she felt her baby move inside her for the first time. A tiny flutter like butterfly wings. She placed her hand on her belly and smiled. The impossible had become possible. And this was only the beginning. The message traveled across the galaxy at the speed of light. It passed through relay stations on distant moons. It bounced off satellites orbiting dead planets. It flew through the darkness of space for 3 long days before it finally reached its destination. Nari was sitting in her garden when her communicator beeped. She was an old Velen woman with deep silver skin and eyes the color of pale moons. She had lived for over 600 years. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched stars die and new ones be born. But nothing in her long life had prepared her for the message. She was about to receive Dodd. She picked up her communicator and pressed the button. A hologram appeared in front of her. It was her daughter, Yuna. She was crying. Mother, Yuna said, I have news. Please sit down. Nari was already sitting, but something in her daughter's voice made her grip the arms of her chair tightly. What is it, child? Are you hurt? Is something wrong with your human husband? No, mother. Nothing is wrong. Something is right. Something impossible is right. Nari leaned forward. Tell me, I am pregnant. The words hung in the air like smoke. Nari did not move. She did not speak. She simply stared at the hologram of her daughter, as if she had spoken in a language Nari did not understand. That is not possible, Nari finally said. Her voice was flat, empty. You are infertile. The healers confirmed this when you were young. I spent half my fortune trying to cure you. Every healer on every planet told me the same thing. Your womb is dead. Your eggs cannot produce life. I know, Mother. I know what they said. But I am pregnant. The human doctors have confirmed it. I have seen the images. There is a baby growing inside me. Nari stood up. Her legs were shaking. This must be a mistake. Human technology is primitive. Their machines are not as advanced as ours. They must have read the results wrong. They did not read the results wrong. They checked many times. Taiho made sure of it. Taiho. Nari said the name like it was a curse. Your human husband. What does he know about Velen biology? He is a doctor, Mother. A good one. He is a human doctor. Humans cannot even cure their own simple diseases. How can he understand something as complex as Velen reproduction? Yuna's hologram flickered. When it became clear again, Nari could see that her daughter's expression had changed. She looked determined now, strong. Mother, I am not asking you to believe me. I am telling you what is true. I am pregnant. In 7 months, I will give birth to a child. Your grandchild. You can either come to Earth and see this miracle for yourself, or you can stay on the home world and doubt me from far away. The choice is yours. The hologram disappeared. Nari stood alone in her garden, surrounded by flowers that had bloomed for centuries. Her mind was racing. Her heart was pounding. She felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Fear, not fear that her daughter was lying. Fear that her daughter was telling the truth. Because if Yuna was really pregnant, then everything Nari believed about the universe was wrong. Everything the Velen healers had told her was wrong. And if they were wrong about this, what else were they wrong about? 3 days later, Nari arrived on Earth. The planet was strange to her. The air was thick and wet. The sun was too bright. The humans moved too fast, talked too loud, and smiled too much. Nari did not understand them. She did not want to understand them. She just wanted to see her daughter and find out the truth. Taiho met her at the landing port. He was a small man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He bowed to Nari in the traditional Korean way. Mother Nari, he said, welcome to Earth. Yuna is waiting for you at home. She is resting. Resting? Nari's eyes narrowed. Why is she resting? Is she sick? No. Pregnancy makes women tired. It is normal. Nari wanted to argue, but she held her tongue. She followed Taiho to his vehicle, a small metal box that moved on wheels. The ride to their apartment took 30 minutes. During that time, Nari asked Taiho many questions. How did this happen? She demanded. My daughter has been infertile since birth. No Velen healer could cure her. How did a human doctor succeed where they all failed? Taiho kept his eyes on the road. I did not cure her alone, he said. I had help. There is a team of doctors at my hospital who have been studying Velen biology for many years. When Yuna and I got married, I asked them to look at her medical records. I asked them to try to find a way to help her. And they found a way? They found a possibility. A treatment that had never been tried before. It took 2 years to develop. 2 years of research, experiments, and failures. But finally, we created something that worked. Nari shook her head. Impossible. The Velen healers have been studying our biology for thousands of years. They have technology you cannot even imagine. If they could not find a cure, how could humans find one in just 2 years? Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that Nari would never forget. Maybe the difference is not about technology, Mother Nari. Maybe the difference is about how we think. Velen healers look at a problem and ask, can this be fixed? If the answer is no, they accept it and move on. Human doctors look at a problem and ask, how can this be fixed? We do not accept impossible. We see it as a challenge. Nari did not reply. She stared out the window at the strange human city passing by. Tall buildings made of glass. Bridges made of steel. Millions of people living their short lives as fast as they could. When they arrived at the apartment, Yuna was waiting at the door. She looked different. Her silver skin was glowing. Her eyes were bright. And her stomach, which had always been flat, now showed a small but visible bump. Nari walked toward her daughter slowly. She reached out and placed her hand on Yuna's belly. She felt warmth. She felt life. She felt something impossible becoming real. How? Nari whispered. Tears were forming in her old eyes. Yuna took her mother's hand. The humans have a saying, Mother. They say, where there is a will, there is a way. Taiho and his team had the will. They found the way. Nari looked at Taiho, who was standing quietly behind them. This small human man with his short life and his simple smile had done what 600 years of Velen medicine could not do. He had given her daughter hope. He had given her family a future. Thank you, Nari said to him. Her voice was barely a whisper. Thank you for not giving up. Taiho bowed again. I love your daughter, he said simply. When you love someone, you do not give up on them. Ever. Nari nodded slowly. For the first time since she arrived on Earth, she smiled. Maybe humans were not as primitive as she had thought.